I am not on a diet. I am, however, losing weight with Mounjaro by using it as a tool to manage my hunger suppression, my cravings, and my food noise. Now, when I first started Mounjaro back in October 2024, so I've been doing it now for about 13 months, I was not aware I had food noise. I knew I was thinking about food all the time. I was obsessed with food. I couldn't stop eating food. I was planning my next meal while I was eating my current meal, or I was having a snack while I was deciding what I was going to eat, or I was endlessly making lists of foods that I wanted to buy the next time that I went to the grocery store. I didn't realise how involved my brain was just with thinking of food all of the time. I had no control over it. It used to rule my days. When I'd be sitting in a meeting at work, I'd be thinking about food. When I was lying in bed at night, I'd be thinking about the first thing I wanted to eat the next morning. Ironically, the hunger that I felt in the morning, so I would wake up in the morning, and even if I was hungry, I was intermittent fasting. So even if I wasn't hungry, I would try and go as long in the day as possible before I put any food in my mouth. But in that time between waking and when I first ate, which used to be around noon, I would say, I would be obsessing about all of these different foods. And I thought that whatever diet I chose was going to be what solved the problem of me eating too much. So whether I was going to do keto or carnivore or Mediterranean, Weight Watchers, Slimming World, you name it, that was going to be the diet that would solve the fact that I was overeating food all the time. I knew I was thinking about food all the time, but I didn't realise it was like food noise, as we've come to know it these days as food noise. Now, obviously, if you've watched any vlogs or you've done any Mounjaro research or GLP-1 research, you'll know that the term food noise is relatively new, but it perfectly describes the fact that you're thinking about food all the time. And I'm also perfectly aware that that's not everybody's issue. Some people have a very hungry tummy and they don't like the feeling of hunger in their tummy. For me, the hunger was never an issue. I could go, I've done intermittent fasting and I've done weeks long fasts. The longest fast I've done without ever eating a morsel of food was 10 days. So in my 20s, early 20s to mid 20s, once a year or once every 18 months, I would do a 10-day water fast. I know. And I used to do it quite successfully. I would think about food from the minute I opened my eyes in the morning to the minute I closed my eyes at night. Now, whether that actually contributed to the problem that I have with food, I'll never know. But I was able to do those 10 days completely ignoring the hunger in my stomach. And I thought it was brilliant for me. I was cleansing, I was detoxing, I was drinking, you can drink herbal teas on it. Can't have coffee, although I did have coffee. I cheated, because of course I've cheated on every diet I've ever been on in my life as well. Apart from on Mounjaro, I haven't cheated on Mounjaro because I opened up the parameters of what I was allowed to do, if that makes sense. But I would go all this time without eating. And when those 10 days were up, you're supposed to do, I can't think of the term that they use, but you're supposed to do like a very gentle reintroduction of food after this, 10-day period of not eating. I would never do that. I would literally launch into the biggest meal that you've ever seen in your life on the morning of day 11 or even the evening of day 10, because towards the end I'd be negotiating with myself of like, well, I kind of like, technically, yeah, it's the end of day 10, so I could probably eat today rather than waiting tomorrow, because then I've done 10 days really, but if I eat at 8 o'clock at night, that's not really part of the day. So all of that justification. So a hungry belly has never been something that I could, that's bothered me. I've just been able to ignore my hunger. The food noise, however, has always been there. And I only realised just how bad it was, or how much my life was ruled by it, after taking that very first dose of Mounjaro. Because when I took it on I think it was a Tuesday, when I took it on the Tuesday and I woke up on the Wednesday morning, and if you've been following me for a while, you know I've said this before, I woke up in the morning and I didn't know what had happened. I couldn't understand what was going on, because there was silence in my head. And I literally thought for a split second, am I dead? Because nothing was happening in my head, and that was so unusual for me. It took me ages to realise that this thing that everyone was talking about, food noise, or what I thought was my obsession with food, was actually a constant presence in my life. It was like my heartbeat. It was just always there in the background, just going on without me really paying attention to it. So even when I wasn't thinking about food, so when I was working and attending meetings, even in the background of that, there would be, I've got ADHD as well, so there'd usually be a couple of songs going around in my head. I'd be making a shopping list. I'd be thinking about what I wanted to eat. I'd be listening to the meeting. I'd be thinking about what so-and-so was doing on their phone next to me. I was planning my next holiday, all different kinds of things. But when I took that first Mounjaro jab, there was nothing. All the ADHD chatter as well went away. Came back later, but anyway, not as bad as it was. So Mounjaro, like, the reason it helped me so much was because it made me realise that my particular issue, was the food noise. Now, also cravings, obviously, because I'd be thinking about all of these different foods and planning when I could get them, how I could get them, could I make them, if I'd seen something in America that wasn't available here, do I have the kitchen skills to be able to reproduce that kind of thing. So my two demons are primarily food noise, secondary cravings, because together those two make a deadly combination for me. Like I said, hunger, I can just ignore that. I can just ignore the hunger. I don't mind that uncomfortable, growly, churny feeling in my belly. But the food noise was the one that's impossible for me to ignore. Impossible. That's a bit negative, isn't it? It's highly unlikely I used to ignore it. And if I did, I was managing it with, like I said, a diet. So the most successful diet I've been on, apart from being on Mounjaro, which is not a diet because I'm not on a diet, was the carnivore diet. And that absolutely killed a lot of my cravings. So I used to think about food all the time, obviously, like that. So when I started the carnivore diet, and I was eating, like, obviously it's meat, eggs, some dairy, although I wasn't doing too much dairy because it bothers me. It made my stomach so satisfied with the food, because obviously really high protein. It made my stomach so satisfied with the food that I wasn't craving as much. I still had the food noise, but the cravings that went along with the food noise weren't there because I was so satisfied, satiated. But that started sort of decreasing, and then what would happen was, inevitably, I would be doing really well on carnivore and I wasn't hungry at all. So there were times when I was eating and I wasn't hungry at all. And the only reason I was eating was because I had the craving for my steak or my chicken, whatever I was doing for dinner. I wanted to eat that big meal because I still wanted that sensation of eating, that the taste, the flavors, the experience, because it was like this. The food hunger was in my head, not in my belly. So I would do usually several weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, of successful carnivore, eating once or twice a day, high fat, high protein, that kind of thing. Doing really well. The most I lost, I think, was 45 pounds when I was doing carnivore. But then inevitably the mood would come, the mood would change, something would happen, there'd be a problem, my mood would be low, some stress at work, and I would fall off the wagon spectacularly. And I would eat carbohydrates and sugar like my life depended on it. And I did that probably for about 2 to 3 years. Most of us have tried every diet under the sun. If you're anything like me, you've done them all, you've experimented, you've hoped that this one that you're starting now was the holy grail. What changed for me when I started Mounjaro, obviously, is the food noise. And having that silence freed up all of the space in my head to be able to reevaluate everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I went right back to basics. As I've said many times before, I got rid of all of my food rules, all of the diet culture that I'd picked up along the way, intermittent fasting, food combining, no carbohydrates, not eating before, not drinking coffee before your first meal, all these different things. Everything that I used to do, I got rid of all of it. And I think only by doing that did I allow myself the space to be able to work out what was my biggest problem. What were the issues that I came to Mounjaro with? So I just thought Mounjaro was just an injection that was just going to make me lose weight. I did research it. I researched it quite a bit, but there was the, fantasy thinking or the miracle thinking of like, this is the one that's going to solve it all. And it did. Essentially it did. But it only did that because I continued to put in the work around the Mounjaro. So as I've gone through this whole journey, I have, like I said, I've looked at things like my portion sizes, the foods that I eat. I try and make sure that I'm having sort of healthy combinations of food. I am still pretty low carb. But also it's allowed me the space, the time, the ability to just reflect on all of those old behaviours and what was I trying to solve, and looking at some of the historical stuff that I've had around food, using food as a coping strategy. And like I said, these midweek musings are always about that. They're always about looking at the mental aspect of the food. But I'm still not on a diet, because to me, the term diet is a negative one for me, because it just smacks of all of those unsuccessful pie in the sky attempts that I had before to find something that was going to work for me, to find the golden key that would unlock weight loss. And for me, that's turned out to be Mounjaro. I'm 92 pounds down. I have 8 pounds approximately to my 100-pound goal. And then I have to go into maintenance. And I say have to go into maintenance because I'm just so not prepared for it. I know how to lose weight. I'm losing weight. I don't know how to do maintenance, but that's a bridge to cross another day. But that's why I'm choosing to stay on Mounjaro for the long term. And when I say the long term, at least another year. There are thoughts in my head about switching to Wegovy sort of once I get into maintenance. And there are people that have done that already and they're doing really well. They're still experiencing the hunger suppression, cravings suppression and food noise. reduction. So I know it is possible. For me, I think I'm probably going to choose to stay on Mounjaro until October 2026. So that'll be 2 years on Mounjaro, only because I know it's working for me and I know it's working for my food noise. That's my huge issue, is the food noise. And I do fear that if I switch to Wegovy, that it might change. And even if it didn't change, I think I know myself well enough that I might be second guessing that the Wegovy was working. So there is some assurance for me in staying in Mounjaro until October, and I'm going to see what dose I need to be on in maintenance to be able to continue, because obviously there's the financial aspect of Mounjaro. Wegovy is a lot cheaper. So like I said, it's still a rough draft at the moment because we're only in November. You know, I've only just passed my 1 year mark. So speculating about next year and maintenance is going to be a whole different thing. I need to get into maintenance first. But I think really what I'm trying to say on this is that I am very aware of my food issues, my food history, my using and abusing food throughout the years. And I think that is an important part to incorporate into your journey. Not everyone agrees. Not everyone has the same mental battles or food issues or historical overeating, binge eating, unhealthy ways of managing emotions, etc. Like I said, we all know there are people that have just they've been slim most of their life. I think Maureen Parnaby is one of the ones who's commented in the past that she was a normal weight until around menopause, and many people were. I think Dr. Bobby was also kind of relatively normal weight until menopause, but then found it really hard to lose weight. So there are definitely people that have come to Mounjaro because they've reached menopause and they just can't shift the weight doing the things that they used to do. But also there's those of us that have arrived here with a whole catalogue of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of food battles, food demons, maladaptive coping strategies, hiding food, sneaking food, squirreling food away and eating it when no one's looking, all of those behaviours that we're ashamed of, that we're guilty of, that we don't want to be reminded of. And if you're anything like me, that Mounjaro have helped you manage. That's why I'm still such a proponent of Mounjaro for me, because it has been the one that I have been able to take and I can rely on, that I know what's happening pretty much most weeks. There've been a couple of ups and downs and a couple of really hungry weeks, and now when I reflect on those, it maybe wasn't just the hunger that was bothering me, it was the hunger was feeding into the cravings, which was then sort of triggering the food noise. So I'm not sure in which order it comes. But if you're really, really hungry, like you're really hungry, and we all know that, you start imagining all kinds of different foods. If you've ever been to the grocery store when you're hungry, you're talking an extra 20 quid on top of your regular grocery shop because you're like, oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good. Oh, I'll have one of those. And then when you get home and you've actually eaten something, you're like, oh, wow, I've just overspent on food that now I'm going to overeat. So like I said, I'm not sure in which order those things are triggered, whether it's food noise, cravings, hunger, or hunger, cravings, food noise, or hunger, food noise, cravings. I'm not sure what order they come in, but all I know for me is that Mounjaro or a GLP-1 manages all of those in whichever order. And if I'm managing to keep my GLP-1 steady and stable in my system, then my brain equally is stable and steady and able to manage food, noise, hunger, and cravings in whichever order they're appearing. So it's been a godsend for me, absolute miracle for me. Mounjaro has been the miracle, the golden key that I've been looking for since I started dieting in my teenage years. And so I don't want to risk it. I don't want to change it. I don't want to mess with it. I want to stay with this. But I also am aware that I'm 56. So paying out that money until, I'm 70, 76, 80? Do I want to do that? Is there a place where I can start to trust myself to taper back, or I've learned enough, I've experienced enough, I've benefited enough, I've tackled the demons enough that I can do this on my own? I don't know. But it's a hope, it's a possibility. And it's something that I don't need to look at now, but it is something that is in my periphery, that I am going to have to look at that at some point. But for now, like I said, I'm probably going to stay on Mounjaro until October 2026. I might change my mind once I'm in maintenance. We'll have to see. But I do know that this has been what I've been looking for. It's been how I imagined my life could be. And certainly my weight is at a level where, like, if I didn't lose another pound, I do want to, but if I didn't, I know I'm at a healthy weight. I'm at a healthy BMI. My body fat is still too high, but that is still something I'm going to be working on as well. If there's anything you want to share in the comments, please do so below. And obviously think about liking and subscribing to the channel if you want to follow me for more videos like this, or I also do a weigh-in video on a Saturday. If you have any questions, please do leave them for me and I will try and get to them in due course. I am still behind on comments and everything, and I appreciate everyone who is bearing with me about that at the moment. So a big thank you to everybody watching, and like I said, if you have any queries, comments, please do leave them down below. I will try and get to them as soon as I can. I am very nearly caught up on all of my comments. I know I've been really behind and I appreciate everybody that's stuck with me. Obviously, like, mental health and seasonal affective disorder, all of those things sort of took priority for me, and I did let the comments slide for quite some time. I think about 4 or 5 weeks I've let the comments slide now, and I'm very sorry for that, but I am getting back on top of it, so hopefully there won't be any comments left unanswered. If there are, it's because they've disappeared into that YouTube hole. I don't know, comments just suddenly appear out of nowhere that were left like 2 months ago, so I don't know where they come from. And also YouTube flags or holds certain comments, and like I have to release them, and sometimes I look at them and I think, why is this being held? I mean, if it's about low BMI or something like that, I can understand, even though nobody is recommending low BMIs, they're just making a comment about BMI. But some of them are just like, oh, well done on your journey, and that's it. And it's held as if it's saying something nasty or inflammatory or racist or something, I don't know. But anyway, so your comment could be in there for absolutely no reason, and that's the YouTube hole that I don't understand. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I am going to be back, obviously, on Saturday for my weigh-in, which will be my week 59 weigh-in. Yeah, and I will see you all then for that update. But hope your week is going well. Hope you're doing okay and you're feeling okay. You're not struggling with side effects. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.